Hello, welcome to the People Rising LinkedIn Live.
Hello.
Our launch event. Thank you everyone for showing up, right?
Oh yeah. Happy Friday to everybody.
And
This
happy
is awesome.
Friday.
Happy Friday.
The weekend's almost here, folks.
Yes.
We'll wait just a couple seconds. We got one more person who's coming in. And then we'll get started.
I always like if we said Happy Monday. Yeah. Instead, look.
I say Happy Monday.
Another week. Yeah. Oh, it's over. Yeah.
You know, that's an interesting.
I say Happy Monday.
I worked at a company where we had a weekly Happy Monday communication that went out with shout outs to people, quotes from customers, giving praise to our folks. And it was a great way to start the week with a nice Happy Monday email message.
That is
nice. I like that. I'm being quiet because Karen suggested I get the kale out of my teeth, which I was eating a kale salad. So I'm pretty transparent, so everybody can know that in case I wasn't able to do that. So we'll TBD.
You're doing good, Tracy.
Exactly.
Let's get started. First of all, I want to thank everyone who's watching. Thank you so much for joining us. We're really excited about the journey that we're starting today. And so we're thrilled to get going here. Oh, you know what? Are you guys seeing Rob's comment?
Yeah.
Oh, awesome. Holy smokes.
And shout out to my peeps on my networks also. Please love, like, and share. This is awesome. This is all over.
That's awesome. So I thought we'd get started with some intros. My name is Linwood Ross. I'm the founder and CEO of Accelerate. I'm your host, and I'll be your host, for the foreseeable future until we can change it up a little bit. And then we'll just kind of go around the horn and say, everyone else give their introductions. Karen, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, sure. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm joining in from New Hampshire. I'm a chief people officer with a passion for coaching and mentoring folks, and believe in helping our people is the best way that we're all going to succeed as individuals and collectively as a team. So I'm really excited to be here with everybody today.
Awesome. Tracy, how about you go next?
Hi, everybody. I'm Tracy Spanenberg. I'm the Chief People Officer of the Granite Group. I'm actually in one of our offices today, which is really pretty nice after it seems like so long where I wasn't in offices. So I'm coming to you from Concord, New Hampshire, which is also where I live. And I'm like Karen, certainly passionate about people developing, but I also love working on transforming the world of work and transforming particularly how HR is viewed and how we view ourselves.
Awesome. Peter, how about you go next?
Yeah. All right, Linwood. Yeah, so I'm Peter Laughter here in Brooklyn, New York, and I am the founder of True Bearing. And I was an entrepreneur in the recruiting and staffing industry for 25 years. And I walked away from that career. Recruiting is broken and fundamentally uses a process to engage with people that is similar to purchasing. And people don't work well when they're treated as product. And I was being part of that ecosystem. And True Bearing is looking to change that and bring more human processes to geared towards storytelling and connection and purpose to help organizations create pipelines of people and supercharge employee referrals.
Great. Shelley, how about you go next?
I get to go last because I have the longest intro.
Oh, boy.
And the coolest glasses.
And the coolest glasses and necklace. Okay, I showed up for this call. All right.
You look great. I feel like I just rolled out of bed. You look wonderful. I got on, I was like, look at Shelley and Karen. And Kim. Hi, Kim.
Yes.
Oh my God. All right, so I'm not last. So I'll speed this up. So hi everybody, I'm Shelley Jeffco. Hi to everybody who's joining in the rooms. So essentially, I've been in the corporate space for about 30 years. I know I don't look it, but I'm a brand expert. I build cultures. I've worked in sales, marketing, comms, engineering. And essentially what I'm known for now is building out strategic employer brands. I also have a company called LCM Group where we build personal brands and brands for veteran small business owners globally. So I'm a YouTuber, I'm all over the place, but I'm just excited to be on this incredible panel and passing over to K Blue Consulting, which launched today. Congratulations.
Oh my goodness. Please know that was not planned or intentional. Can I say that?
Strategic announcement.
Right. It just ended up happening. But what I will say, so hello everyone, I'm Kim Blue. And to my esteemed colleague, Shelly, I did just launch my own business yesterday. So I'm putting my foot into entrepreneurship officially. It was probably always coming, but what a day to be able to launch it alongside these brilliant people that I've gotten to know over the last few weeks. So I do have the pleasure of owning my own business. In addition to that, I am a career strategist, a coach, an HR leader, and thrilled to just be able to help bring all the things that I've been fortunate enough to learn over the course of my career alongside this motley crew that we have formed, and really be able to just help make the work that we do better. So I'm excited
Awesome.
to be here.
I love it. Thank you so much. Before I kind of get things started, I just want to let you know that next week we have a special guest. Of course, things are not working quite as I hoped they would right away. There he is. Our special guest next week is going to be Dr. Edward Morrison, founder and executive director of the Strategic Doing Institute. Ed is, probably one of the leading experts on collaboration. How do we work better together? So we're going to see Ed next week. And I'm sure we're going to see Ed, relatively regularly on the program as we begin this journey together. So what brought us here, right? How did we all get here? You did,
Lenwood.
Yeah.
I started, reaching out to these folks and Ed and many other people to help solve the problem, the big complex problem that we're all facing today, which is how do we get things moving faster? How do we work better together? How do we, eliminate some of this overload and, burnout, all these things. And the issues are really related. They really are related. And, my journey started with my own, getting to understand digital transformation. I'm a digital transformation expert. I didn't say that when we started. I'm a digital transformation expert. And, my journey started with an idea. I actually happened to capture a picture of myself as this idea was forming. It's very strange. Here it is. That's me forming this idea. Okay. And so the idea was this: what if we could make this change easier for everyone? Right? We're going through a tremendous change in our economy. Our organizations are attempting to transform, but things are really, really, really broken. And we're not moving quite as fast as we'd like to move. And so I just had an idea. What if we could make it easier for everyone? And then the next thing that I wanted to share with you guys, which I think is so powerful. This year, the 2023 Edelman Trust Barometer, for those who may not be familiar with it, they do a big report on trust in the global economy, who trusts who, and all this stuff. And a very interesting thing was discovered, or at least published. And I'm going to share that with you right now. And here it is. After scientists, we trust our coworkers most. I just think that's so compelling. We trust our coworkers more than we trust our neighbors, more than we trust people in our local community.
More than our CEOs.
More than our CEOs.
Exactly.
Right? So what could we do with that trust? Where can we go with that trust? Ed Morrison, I don't know if he's going to talk about it next week, but he explained to me exactly why that is, why it is that we trust our coworkers more than almost anyone else. So we'll get to that. And then the final thing, I'd like to share and say about this journey that we're all going on, and each one of these folks here is going to share why they chose to join me on this journey, is this community is about solving problems and sharing solutions. But even more than that, it's about taking action. We have all experienced this, talking, meetings after meetings, and projects on top of projects. We want to break that logjam. We want to get to the how of getting things done and getting them done fast. And so that's really, really what this community is about. So I just encourage everyone to stay with us. It's going to be a journey, and I'm sure we're going to go a long way together. So with that, Karen, do you want to, why did you decide to join this?
Well, first of all, I love you, Lenwood. I love your energy. I love the passion that you bring to everything, and it's contagious. And I think that's a really important thing as we work together to make changes, right? We have to bring an energy and a passion for the things that we're doing. So that was kind of the first thing. But really what you said around action, I hate feeling stuck in the mud, whatever it is, right? An object in motion stays in motion. And if we need to adjust a little bit to the left or the right with the help and support of each other and colleagues, then let's do it. But at least we're moving. We may make mistakes. We may not always go in the right direction, but we're moving, and it'll be so much easier to adjust and get headed in the right direction. And I have always had that propensity for action. And that's one of the things that's just so appealing to me about this, and to make an impact, right? Especially in human resources. It's about having an impact for the greater good as individuals, like I said in the beginning, right? When people rising, when we rise as individuals, we all rise together as a group. And that's I'm excited.
Yes, I love it. That's awesome. Who wants to go next? That was awesome.
Go ahead. Was it Tim? Oh, no, go ahead, Shelley. You go.
I was going to say.
I want to follow Karen anyway.
I
don't want to follow you either. But,
I'm like, what did I do? Well, to further continue the Lenwood Love Fest, two reasons. One because this is a spirited bunch of professionals who've been in the trenches, folks that I've stalked for many years, and so the opportunity to work alongside and share best practices and have these kind of conversations where I'm also learning and growing. Absolutely. The second thing was the word trust. So the first time we met, I put a post out that talked about trust and why that's so important. That slide that you shared about the employees and the relationship that we have with our coworkers and trusting our coworkers and peers and colleagues more than we do our CEOs, absolutely true. And so when this opportunity came up to work alongside folks that are trusted in the industry, right? For all of you guys on LinkedIn, because there's a lot of folks with doing a lot of things, but you want to come to the people who are credible, who are doing the work, and they're in the trenches. So that is why I'm here. Lenwood, trust, and community.
Beautiful, beautiful. I love it.
I'm going to go and continue the Lenwood Love Fest. So I'll have a funny story. So, and I don't want to follow Karen or Shelley, but I'll talk about this. So first of all, I could say when Lenwood reached out and said, we're going to do this, I'm like, great. And then, as it turns out, I couldn't make like 3/4 of the meeting. So all of this good work that's been done, I claim none of it. So these incredibly brilliant folks have been doing great work. So my family comes first, and then my full-time job, and then I slot things in, and I've had a pretty busy January and February. So, but I'm going to learn alongside everybody here, and I see a lot of familiar faces, so that's really exciting. So, quick funny story. So I see that Orlando in the comments has known Lenwood since you were both 18. I think I can beat that. I think Lenwood, we were probably 16 when we met, and I think this group
Somewhere
knows
around
that.
there, 15 or 16.
Somewhere around
Yeah.
there, 15 or 16. Yep, our parents are friends. We became friends. We lost touch over the years, so I think I appeared in Lenwood's feed, and he's like, I look exactly the same, you know, put on some pounds and a lot of gray hair later, but exactly the same as I did in high school. And he's, I think that's my high school friend. So we reconnected, and it turns out we shared a passion for not only digitalization, social, all things social, and most importantly, people, and advancing the profession of human resources. So we had a lot in common. So we've been talking for a while, and anything Len would ask me to do, I'm going to say yes, unless it's illegal, immoral, or, otherwise. So I'm super excited to be here. I'm learning from this group every day. Karen and I have known each other for not a year,
that long,
maybe,
but
year and a half, not that long, but
we're almost
it feels like
neighbors.
longer. We are almost neighbors. We're close by. But it's been a joy the little time I've had to get to know Shelley and Peter and Kim, and looking forward to much more.
Awesome. Who wants to go next?
Tracy, I think that it's the only reason you include me into a group of brilliant people is because you haven't been at all the meetings. So I'm grateful for your absence with including me in that group.
Oh, come on, Peter. No, that's not true.
Well, so my purpose in life is recognizing that we humans are profoundly and deeply connected. My purpose is to raise up those connections and have them be visible and tangible in our day-to-day lives. And that is really what that has brought me to a lot of really wonderful places with a group of people. I founded the New York chapter of Conscious Capitalism. It really gave me an interesting perspective of my business, and really allowed me to see the importance of connection within companies. And I was really lucky in my entrepreneurial career to have employees who would get in my face and tell me when I had my head up my rear. And I realized that, leadership is not about being the smartest guy in the room, of which I am almost never, but it is about fostering those voices and making sure they're heard, and that those insights can be acted upon. And when I had that realization, it really changed who I was as a leader. I didn't have all of the insecurity around that just went away. I could walk into a room not knowing the answer to a big problem, but really knowing that answer would come forth with the people in the room. And I think that the world really, and particularly when we look at corporate America and the role of human resources, that is really what we need. And so Lenwood and I really shared that understanding, and we connected on LinkedIn, and it's been a great relationship this past year. And I'm really excited about the work that we're doing together going forward. And I am very much honored to be with all of you.
All right. And so now, Kim Blue, it's up to you.
Yes. So I will round this out. I think I actually said it in the first conversation. Like, I actually don't know how I got here amidst all of you all. Because one of the things that Lenwood, I was the person that was like, so, I want to make sure we're clear on what it is that we're going to do. And like that and Lenwood very calmly said, we're here to change the world. And I was like, oh, no big deal. No big deal.
I'm all in on that. Yeah.
I'm in on that. Yes.
By the way, everyone who's watching, that's the goal here.
Yes. Yes. This is a true story. These are not mythical statements. That is what he said to us. And I was like, no pressure, right? And so again, further reinforcing how I got here. But I am here because Lenwood asked me to be here. I've had the pleasure of spending the last sort of year listening to him and getting to understand more about the work that he's doing and the impact that he wants to have. I definitely am a servant leader, one who is, here for the people, here for lived experience, but very much a connector and very much someone who is an advocate for ensuring that equity comes across everything that we do. And oftentimes that starts with the way that people experience their organization or how they're thinking or how they're empowered in certain things. And so I am bringing that small smidgen of expertise to this powerhouse group. And that is why I'm here, right? It's same as everybody else, to learn, to expand my knowledge, to just be a better human every day. So I'm excited to just see where this thing goes.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kim. So, we want these sessions to be interactive. I know we haven't said that much, right, about where we're going. But are there questions? Is there anything that does anyone here on the panel have a question they want to raise, or anyone out there? Please let us know. We want this to be interactive. Certainly next week with Ed, he'll want that to be interactive. But what can we share with you about what we're doing, where we're going with it? Because I'm happy to do that, but I didn't want to overwhelm our first show.
Hey, Lenwood, can you talk a little bit about the cadence and how people can get involved and how they can interact and if this is recorded and all that, the kind of like, I've got that kind of brain, like I need to know all the details of everything.
I think that's awesome. So we are going to meet. We are going to be meeting every Friday, unless something comes up, 4th of July holiday, stuff like that. We won't meet, or people are sick, and we'll make an announcement about that. I think we'll probably need to create some. Oh, by the way, we're creating this as we go, which is an important thing that everyone needs to start getting used to, right? In our organizations, experimenting. Right? We need more experimenting in our organizations, right? So we're experimenting. We're doing this very quickly, right? One of the things that I will share is that we are using a particular process to build this community. And we learned a little bit about that process a little over 30 days ago. And congratulations to the group, because our first milestone was this LinkedIn Live. And we got it done.
We did it
in less than 30 days, right? And that it's all about action. And we used a process of having really deep, focused conversations to accomplish it. And so that's great. So what was the next thing you asked, Tracy? Oh, where you should connect with everyone. Okay, that is going to be the best way to track what's going on as we build, because there are going to be additional milestones, right? We're going to announce new things that will be happening. We're starting with the LinkedIn Live. We're going to get that cadence going over a few weeks. And then we'll announce something else that will give people an opportunity to come closer and go deeper. We will, in terms of the type of sessions we're going to have, these are going to be really, they'll be fun. I'm not saying that they won't be fun, but we got some serious thinkers.
Some fun people too. We're all fun.
Yeah, we're fun.
Maybe not Peter. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah,
I'm just kidding,
very,
Peter.
very boring. Yeah.
But our work, and I don't want to get too heavy, but our world is facing serious challenges. And one of the things, I've spent a lot of time with Ed Morrison over the last 6 months, and I learned something new every time I talk to him. Literally every time I talk to him. Yesterday, I'm talking to him. I'm like, what are you? It's just kind of a mind blow. How can I have been talking to you for all these hours over all these months and to just have sort of like a mind blow experience? But Ed is Ed is just an awesome guy. But Ed is solving the problem of organizational change, digital transformation in organizations, right? It's something that we've been talking about for 20 years.
Yeah.
70% or 70 to 80% of transformation initiatives are failing. That's a big problem, right? That's a complex challenge. So
and that number has been that for 20 years.
20 years. And what's the scariest word in HR? Transformation. Anytime you see that word, HR professionals scatter because it's automatically meaning chaos or something to that nature. So there's folks in the chat that were talking a little bit about recruiting. I'm not sure if y'all are hearing an echo. I'm hearing an echo. Are you hearing? Is that me? Okay, I don't know why I'm echoing. But there are folks that were talking about recruiting. And I wonder if Peter, you can talk just a little bit about that, especially because we're seeing a lot of this happening on LinkedIn now with job losses and layoffs. And so what was the workforce planning strategy that some of these companies had in place to buffer some of these layoffs that we're seeing? Right, just things along that line. I think a lot of people are kind of feeling some of that pain right now.
Oh, for sure, right?
Peter, it's really it's fascinating. And are you guys hearing me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, good. It's fascinating because I think you look at this concept of recruiting, which I've been going deep into the past 6 months. Nobody's not happy with it. It is 82% of hiring managers view finding the right people as their biggest challenge. Over 70% of recruiters say that they struggle to find quality candidates. And I think all of this comes from, and I remember about 15 years ago, I ran into this trap. In the recruiting industry, our product is people. It is easy to make the jump to view people as product. And our systems of recruiting are really using a methodology of purchasing, a very simple process of acquiring stuff and using that simple methodology for the insanely complex process of engaging with other human beings. And it doesn't work. And I think and if we take a step back from that, we all of us have been operating under this hierarchical model that was created thousands of years ago. So people could keep peasant farmers who are illiterate from starving to death, right? Now we all have access to more information than kings did 50 years ago in our pockets, which we use for cat videos and arguing with strangers mostly. But we don't need this structure to keep us in line. We're actually are generative, but it's failing forever. Now, IBM did a study in the end of 2019, pre-pandemic, where Fortune 500 CEOs, a vast majority of them said that they were incapable of managing the complexities of their own industry, and they are right. Wow. It's the hierarchy is the problem.
Yeah, that's I don't want to get on my soapbox, but that is that's it. I mean, that's the bottom line. And Ed is going to talk. Ed will speak to this next week. This is the subject of what he's going to be talking about, is that our organizations, the way they're designed, the command and control structure is suited for a different age. It's really built for the industrial age. And we are in the networked age. We're in the digital age. And so the way that we work needs to change significantly. And it is the stress of these old structures that has really burdened all of us. And we've been doing it for a very long time. And that's why you see burnout at an all-time high. And if I can share some, last night I was listening to, I don't know if it was, I think it was a retired general. And the question was asked, how is it that the Russian army invaded Ukraine with 200,000 people, yet the Ukrainians were able to defeat them? I mean, they've pushed them back. I mean, Russians are, almost out of Ukraine. Why is it that they were able to do that? And his answer was this: the Soviets, not the Soviets, that was a slip. Russia is fighting the last war. So the way they operate is command and control. It's the way that they fought in World War II. They're still using that same structure. And so what the US military imparted to the Ukrainian military is that is the wrong approach. Because in the networked world, this is how they were able to defeat a much larger organization. You need to be flexible, adaptable. So you have the Russian army moving in a very static command and control way, and you have the Ukrainian army bobbing and weaving. They are a team of teams, as Stanley McChrystal, that's the title of his book, Team of Teams. And what that means is that when the Ukrainians were moving and adapting, Russia could not respond. They could not respond because by the time information from the battlefield got up to the head general, battlefields changed.
Yeah.
So they're responding to a completely different situation. That same thing is happening in our organizations. By the time this information gets to senior leadership, if it gets to them at all.
Right, if it does.
If it gets to them at all, things on the ground, things in the field have changed, dramatically changed. And so they're responding to something. So anyway, that's a major problem. And so that is the core problem that we have a process. We have a way. We're going to get you there. If you stick with us, we're going to get you there. Someone asked an interesting question. What was it? I want to just go back to it. Orlando, who I think may have had to leave, he said, is there a way to subscribe and or stay informed on future meetings? Someone else asked me this. I think what we're going to need to do is create a community page on LinkedIn. Yeah.
What I just want to add, there's a lot of great comments, but I think what Dora just commented on finding this globally, that we need more action in HR. We're a global society, and she's excited to be part of this conversation. So I think that's something that even I, for years and years, and still occasionally find myself falling into this trap, being so insulated within my business is US based and not thinking globally. But regardless of whether you have one location in Concord, New Hampshire, you're all over the country, or you're all over the world, we all need to think globally. And we're a global society now. So I loved that comment. And congratulations on your degree.
I just want to add to that for a second, Tracy, because I'm glad you called that out, because I saw it, and I've been fortunate enough over my career. I've worked for companies that have always had a global footprint, and I've always been the person in those roles, fortunately, to have been able to use my voice to say, I'm located in Charlotte, but the headquarters is in this place, and I'm supporting people in, different countries, different time zones. I've had to build teams in different countries and different time zones. And so really embracing that. And my master's degree is in org development as well. And so I am constantly wanting to encourage that organizational agility that we need to have, not only in our thinking, but really in the doing as well. And trying to say, if we continue to do this way, is that going to yield the goals that we want to have organizationally? And then how does it keep us from being, limited in our thinking, right? Because when we talk about equity, right, there's a level of organizational equity that I don't think we've achieved yet. I think we're aspiring to, and I think that's a big part of why the 6 of us are here, is to start evangelizing that a little bit more, because equity looks different. Part of what we do when we talk about strategic doing is going to be helping people define what that equity is in there. But the org design piece and everything that you all have talked about is so huge. And that is something that definitely can become that more of that global connector that I think people can embrace. So thank you, Dora, for raising that for sure. And whoever the LinkedIn user is that says, along with the agile leadership values and to develop that change management, I am a proponent for change management. I think it is wildly underutilized. And we said it at the top, like people aren't ready to embrace change, or right. I think Shelley said transformation, right? The folks go scattering. And so how do we change the perception of what that is and how we can embrace it, right? As a part of like how we move the organization forward, especially when we think about workforce of the future, because it's certainly not going to look like what it does today or did 5 years ago. So I love that you called that out, Tracy.
And
yeah, that's very powerful.
And Kim, I think that narrative that we have is that change is hard, or it's hard to get organizations to change. This is BS. Someone gets a raise or a promotion, they're there. They're excited about it. It's when we are changing to something that we don't understand or don't think it's work, we're going to resist it. And where's that change coming from? It's usually coming from the very top of that hierarchy. And there's this guy, Sidney Yoshida, and he came up with this concept called the iceberg of ignorance, which is a terrifying name, but he pointed out that the C-suite only is aware of 4% of the problems that are happening within their organization. And whereas people on the ground are aware of almost all of those problems. And so when we have people at the top who don't even see the problems are making a change, the people on the bottom say, this isn't going to work, I don't want to do it. And that's what makes it hard. And so we need to fundamentally shift how we are going about that change and who we are including into that conversation, which is so critical. It is. And I think we're now in a period of time where diversity and inclusion, it's not a good thing. It is a mandate. Organizations that don't adopt those principles will not be able to survive.
Yeah. Can I ask the group a question? And I would love to hear from the audience as well. But like in all of our collective careers, have you had or used like a change management framework? And if so, were there like values or principles attached to that? I've only done it once truly once in my career, where it was like, these are our, change is owned by everybody, and we have to have transparent leadership, to what you were talking about, Peter. But it's only once in my, now I've not been around that long, but only one time, right? That I've seen that. Yeah. I'm curious to know what you all think, and anybody who's listening, right? But I think that goes all into what we're going to be embracing as we raise this, framework of strategic doing out there. So.
I have not, and I think, but I've taught it, which is really interesting. So I studied in college. I studied organizational psychology, and I taught a HR certification course for years, and loved the principles. And I think early in my career, I thought of change management as this big thing that you hire these really expensive consultants to come in and break apart your organization, right? And that's not it. Well, that can be it, I'm sure. I know offense to all the consultants out there, right? Yeah, exactly. So in graduate school, I had a professor that's exactly what she did. So, but it doesn't have to be that challenging. And I think, I think back on different change initiatives and different, maybe we brought in bits and pieces, but certainly didn't formalize it.
Yeah, Sam makes a good point. He says, I think 40% of product management is change management. And that could very well be true in that sector, but in the HR world, I can remember one time about 15 years ago, Kim, to your question, where it was used, and it was as a result of a larger HROM transformation at that time, and quite frankly, it was led by a consulting firm. So that should put the frame around, when it was used, when it was adapted, and you're right, there are times when we could be using change management in our day-to-day. If we're talking to HR members right now, or members of the HR community, thinking about how do you communicate the changes that are coming from your C-suite? I'm talking like very basic. How are you managing, the expectations? How are you rolling things out, whether it's a policy or a priority? And even in those episodes, you do have to think of change management. But I don't think, quite frankly, Tracy, I don't think that a lot of people are doing that. So I hope for those of y'all who are having those types of situations, we definitely want to hear from you. There's another person in the chat, Carol, that's saying she's had more than one employer, and it's basically using the RACI, which we all love, but yeah.
I'm curious if that's large employer,
right,
or small, and what size of employer, because I also, you can bring this to any size employer, but I tend to think of employers who are larger, embracing change management.
Yeah.
Well, and Tracy and I, just recently at a smaller company, we had a CEO in a very command and control way tried to impose the use of a RACI for change management, but disregarded a lot of the simple common sense pieces that go along with it, like communication, right?
Yeah.
The communication, the transparency, the communicating of consistent messaging to all the appropriate stakeholders repeatedly, right? We have to say it over and over again. We have to be saying it similar. We have to be speaking the same language, right? So even if there's that framework, if it's a tool, and tools have to be used at the right time for the right task, right? We're not going to use a hammer to try and, here's my lack of construction knowledge, but right, but it's the right tool at the right time, and the ability to adapt and evolve. And, something we haven't even touched on here is some of the generational differences too.
Yeah.
Right? Somebody recently gave me the story of, I think all of us probably had leaders that were of the command and control style, and that maybe some of how we originally learned how to lead was as a result of that, good or bad, right? And then, if our boss said, and I mean our boss said jump, we said, okay, how high? Now, if I said that today to a Gen Zer, they're going to look at me and say, why? And I'm going to say, what do you mean, why? Right?
Yeah.
Right. But we have to take a step back. And it is about the communication. It is about the vision and why, and that bottom up approach, right? Who knows where the issues are and who's going to be a part of resolving those issues. So,
and I think you're right. I have 3 Gen Z kids, so I get how that is so true. And I don't like to segregate people amongst generations, but I do think that generation is changing the way we work, and I love it. But I think we have to look at and change ourselves constantly. And I think not enough of us do that. I certainly didn't up until way too recently, but I think we always need to be evaluating and changing how we approach things, how we work, how we work within our organization, outside, everything that we do. We need to look at that all the time.
Yeah, that is, if I could just chime in here for a second, that is so important. Learning and adaptability has to be part of everything that we're doing. If the world is changing quickly, then we have to constantly be in a learning mode. So I think saying we need to build a learning culture, I think that's overused a bit. And there's no standard way to build a learning culture. That's because organizations are different and practices are different. I think that we have an approach that is fundamentally different, and will be very useful to everyone. So, I look forward to sharing that. But a question that I had, you guys were talking about change management, and it's a little bit of a pushback on change management. It's really more of a question, right? So if change management worked, if it was effective, why haven't we seen more change?
If I can tell a story about that, in 2006, I ran the marathon with Memorial Sloan Kettering's team, and we did training runs every Saturday morning. Got up at an ungodly hour, and we were doing a long run from the Intrepid Aerospace Museum, the aircraft carrier in Manhattan, all the way up the West Side Highway of Manhattan, over the George Washington Bridge, and back. It was our first 18-mile run, and the route was pretty confusing. So we're all given these slips of paper to give us instructions at certain intersections, and they were not good instructions. And I was running with a group of 18 people. And we got to the first point where it was confusing. Now, these 18 people, they're all capable professional folks who are capable of raising $4,000 for the privilege of running 26.2 miles. They get up at 5 a.m. every Saturday, and get themselves to a space. I mean, these are very professional people. We stopped at this place and no one was willing to say this way. And at the time, my arrogant self thought, oh, people need leadership. They need someone to point them in the right direction. But what I've realized is I was totally wrong. We live in a world where these highly capable professional people have been so beaten down that they are afraid to say, I'm pretty sure it's this way, and are willing to trust me, who's dyslexic as all head out, and I don't even know the difference between my right and left, to say this way, because they don't want to get slapped for having the wrong answer. And I think that is why change management doesn't work, is the people who need to say like, oh, we're about to fall off a cliff, know that they need to keep their mouth shut or they're going to get in trouble. And I think that's why it fails. My personal opinion.
We had somebody point out psychological safety, right? That lack of psychological safety in the workplace.
I will add to that, Peter. I think that sometimes there's not clear change management principles. Like, what's the responsibility of the leadership at the top? Right. Like, are they going to be are they going to be transparent? Who owns it? How are we going to, we've been talking about that command and control mindset. If you take a command and control mindset into a change management approach, it's not necessarily going to come out right. And you're sort of in that survive and advance mentality. And we need to be more adapt and adjust, whatever that is, in real time. And so I think there's a lot to be said for what gets put out there around the expectations of change, right? How you gain buy-in or how you help people understand, like, this is the way that we need to move through it. Even if they don't agree with it, they understand, like, this is what it is. And then that gets into the actual execution and the doing and what that then looks like, so that the change can land as effectively as possible, right? And to your point, Karen, I think you made a great statement about saying, generationally, there's some mindsets and some things that still help us navigate through that. Those things start to butt heads as you meet people who are saying, but no, we could do it in this direction. Sometimes that's then that's the why, or the we've always done it this way, or how we kind of stick with what we know versus stepping into the unknown and embracing something different. So
the courage, right? The courage to embrace something different. Absolutely. That word. There's a message in here I want to call out for. Hi, Mario. He was agreeing that learning is complex and applying it to effective leadership. And that is one of those, listen, I have a thing with this word. When someone says leadership, if you're using that as a job title, or if you're making that in reference to, like, I spoke to leadership, it's a behavior, it's not a title. So, I guess the one thing, like, let me just get it off my chest. But he makes such a great point about the beauty of learning and studying and applying effective leadership behaviors and tying those back to the change management principles that Kim's talking about in any organization. I honestly thought, as I was like looking at where we were after 2021 post-pandemic, because we were kind of shifting and everyone, we were all on the future of everyone. I think all of us were on future of work streams at that point, right? And so we were talking about the future of work, and then the future of work became how we work, and a lot of us shifted those principles into how we work, where we are now in hybrid work, etc. But I know that there was, at least for me, there was a miss when it came to applying those principles and tying it back to those leadership principles and tying it back to change management principles and how we communicated what's next. So now what's happened is here we are in 2023 trying to figure out how do we as HR professionals or leaders or organizational professionals, how do we support this digital landscape that keeps shifting? I mean, how do we catch up? What do we do? What do we do?
Well, I love what you said, Shelley, that leadership is a behavior, not a title. And I think that because inherent in that is the truth of the matter is power and leadership is dynamic and
Yeah.
flexible, and it moves throughout and it's those people who understand that is dynamic and flexible and concede leadership to those who are most appropriate to lead in any given moment. Is really what's needed. And I've lost it in the chat, but the person that you shouted out said there's 8 billion people here, and 8 billion styles, and it's our ability to listen, not to pronounce, which actually allows for that to happen. So
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. You guys raise an interesting point, and that's this issue of power in organizations. Okay, and what do you do with the active saboteur? Okay, what do you do with the person who, irrationally maybe, for whatever reason, they're going to undermine what's going on, even sometimes when it's against their own interest? What do you think about that?
Well, and it's not that uncommon, Linwood. I mean, you look at the Gallup survey, 1 in 5 workers globally are actively disengaged, meaning they're working against the aim of the organization. Next time you're in an elevator with more than 5 people, look around. Like, it's terrifying. Yeah.
I love that point, Peter. And so there's a lot happening in the chat. So
Awesome, everyone. Thank you.
Engaging, because there's so much going on. I've got one ear in and one eye on the chat, but people are really contributing. There's a lot of good comments. I'm going to call out Nikki's comment, and then I think we can work our way back down. But she's talking about this notion of change exhaustion. And that very much, Peter, could be what you're talking about when people are saying, I'm disengaged. There's so much going on. I'm not really clear. I don't understand where I fit in. Am I really contributing and adding value, or is different from what I thought it was going to be? So there is this notion of change adoption in terms of how you then can create that clarity for folks. That might be fueling why people feel like, I'm just going to dissociate, because then I don't have to do anything other than what is quote unquote expected of me. And then Deborah called out only having worked for one approach, but I love that she called out the organizational values that are in there. And I would be curious to know how many of us have come from, or how many of you have even had those values, because I also think that could very much be tied to that dissociation, Peter, that you're talking about, when people disengage. Well, if I'm not tied to a value, if nobody's really like seeing my value, then what am I doing here, right? It's just sort of a means to an end in terms of engagement.
Kim, I think you're right. Oh, go ahead, Karen. Go ahead.
No, it's going to talk, to Linwood's comment about the active saboteurs, right? There's something called positive intelligence, and it's really about the percentage of time that our mind is actively serving us versus the percentage of time our mind is serving against us. And you think about that in terms of our own mind, right? Our own saboteurs. It talks about the saboteurs and then the sage perspective. And if we can really build up our sage muscles in our brain, and there's a neurological science behind all of this, we never get rid of our own saboteurs, but we make them a lot smaller, with much smaller voices in our head. And to me, that applies to the workplace and to how we solve problems and how we work together and how we work with that active saboteur employee in the workforce, right? If I can work with them on the amount of time that they're sabotaging things knowingly or unknowingly, and maybe there's a way that I can help that person or that team even get more into that sage mindset. So instead of the yes, but yes, that might work, but there's a million other reasons why it won't, where we're automatically censoring ourselves, to encourage yes and thinking. Don't think about why it is or isn't, just come up with the ideas and brainstorm. And you can actually see a team click, right? When they shift to that sage perspective, you can almost feel the change, right? And so that plays to a lot of what we're talking about here. And not that you go around and you can't fire every employee that's an active saboteur unless they're truly doing
Right.
terrible things, right? Because as you said, but based on the numbers, we'd have no employees, right? But how do we shift them from saboteur mode to even that sage mode? How do we shift ourselves? How do we shift our employees? And again, I think that all ties back to kind of where we're going with this in terms of strategic doing.
Yeah, for sure.
When you drop this right at the end, and this could be a whole discussion.
I know, like,
that was interesting.
Yeah, and thank you, Carol, for sharing the website for Positive Intelligence. If you're not familiar with it, it's amazing. I encourage you to, you can go on, you can do a quick assessment to understand what your PQ assessment and what your saboteurs are, and you can figure out how, if you can't help others unless you've started helping yourself first. So it's great.
And I think we have to recognize that you and Karen, I think you made a great point, but we can't, not everybody can be saved or should be saved either. So we have to recognize how, I would say if somebody is actively sabotaging, okay, you examine that, right? But if someone is actively trying to sabotage anything in your organization, you have to really question whether that person should be there, and whether it's, that can be just so deadly.
But it can
Lenwood,
happen.
we need to do a topic, a whole session on that topic alone.
Yeah.
Well, I've written it down. But we've, the funny thing about it is that it can happen at the highest level of the organization, right?
Yes,
and it is the fiefdoms, it is the silos, and it's the fear, and it's the insecurity, right? That is maybe in some cases preventing things from moving forward. But they all relate back to this command and control way of operating, command and control way of thinking. And, Ed there's no way we'll get to it next week, but Ed and the strategic doing team, I will share, I might've been using it. So who knows where it is. Oh, here it is. There is a book. The book is Strategic Doing, 10 Skills for Agile Leadership. If you want to pick it up, it's really insightful. But Ed is actually, they've got it down to a science, and it's so simple. And without even knowing really all of the rules, we did something here in 30 days. We got something done using strategic doing. And so that's really, awesome. And before we end, I'll just one more time so you can see, if I do it next week, is our special guest.
Opa.
Next week is our special guest. And we're gonna, we'll do our best to have, someone interesting each week. And I've got to.
You said someone interesting. What does that make us?
What did it say?
I'm sorry. Someone else interesting.
Yeah. Because at least 5 people on this stream are very interesting.
Not you, Peter. No.
The one with 2 thumbs and no hair on his head, maybe not so much.
But yeah, so we're there are big issues going on, and we know people want to and need to hear about them. So we're gonna have, Ed's gonna be on. We've got a labor market economist in the queue. We've got some agile leadership specialists in the queue. We've got some transformational leadership people in the queue. So we're going to have some great people. So we've just got a minute left. Is there anything that anyone else wants to share or say before our time is up?
Thank you. This is so much fun. So much more.
Yes, thank you
I don't
all.
know what I was imagining, but it's so much better than.
Well, I was sitting here thinking, boy, what I did such a good job.
You did. You did. You
Yay.
really did.
You did, Lenwood. This is a wonderful group.
Yeah.
Oh,
Awesome.
thank you so
And
much.
thanks
And
to
you were
everybody
like
in the chat, right?
the
Everybody
first
in the
meeting.
chat.
Yes.
Why am I
Yes,
here?
yes, yes. Thank you to the chat. You guys were super engaging and just
yeah.
gave us a lot of energy. So bring it back next week.
Yeah.
Yep.
bring it back.
Yeah, and share the next week's
Yes.
meeting. So
Yeah,
hopefully we'll see you
absolutely.
back
Let
and,
people know.
and share it with your networks. I figured out how to do it at like 11 o'clock today. So next week I'll do it a little bit earlier.
Awesome.
Thank
you
you
so
all.
much. Thank you everyone for joining us, and we'll see you next week. I'm so glad you're here and you're joining us on this journey. It's going to be awesome. Thank you so much. We're going to change the world, everyone.
Yes.
Thank you,
Thanks,
everybody.
everyone.
Bye all. Thank you.
Bye,
Bye.
everybody.